Emancipation is long overdue, so it becomes procrastination, cause freedom is within you. For some reason we think we're free, so we'll never be, because we haven't recognized slavery. You still a slave, look at how you behave, debating on where and when and how and what master gave.
Hello everybody and welcome to This Week in Tyranny, a weekly show about authoritarianism, government overreach, and global injustice. Today is April 1st, Saturday. My name is Conrad Broges. I am your host of this show, and if tyranny is not at your doorstep, that's because there's someone in the street keeping it at bay. And on this show, we will talk about Donald Trump's indictment. This video was supposed to be about that and the Nashville shooting as well, but I've decided that I have to make the Nashville shooting video a separate video in itself because there's so much within it. I will be doing an occult breakdown of that. Unfortunately, I will do that, and it just cannot be bunched into a video like this. So I'll focus on the Donald Trump indictment because that's dominated the news anyway. That's overshadowed everything, and I've never really had an opportunity to talk about the Trump presidency anyway. So because of the news, let's talk about it. I'll have an opportunity because when I started this show, This Week in Tyranny, his presidency was already over, right? So, and it seems like everything that's transpired as a result of that presidency is coming to a head now with this indictment. You know, as we come up on the heels of the 2024 election. But Donald Trump was indicted, right? Which means he's basically charged, right? He's going to be facing charges, and then he has to turn himself in and so forth, and basically be treated like one of us when we make any kind of small infringements. We get the book thrown at us. But this makes Donald Trump the first president in U.S. history to be indicted, which is kind of crazy looking back at, you know, Richard Nixon and different presidents, how much damage they've caused, how many wars. But he is the first one to be come up against the U.S. court system, the justice system, so-called. And the important thing is to talk about the dialectic here, because that's what the Trump presidency is all about. It's about the dialectic, which means a dialectic is a system in which you create two polarities. It could be created or it could be occurring naturally, but you use those two polarities to they exert force on each other, right? Two sides, two ideologies, and what you're going to do is you're going to have that energy from the two forces working against each other, and you're going to direct them towards a synthesis, towards a specific solution, right? A Hegelian dialectic is what this is called. And we see this in a whole lot of different ways, you know, Christianity, Islam, Republican, Democrat. But the dialectics has been really strengthened and focused in recently in recent years, thanks to the Trump presidency. And when he first ran for president, you know, I was fooled out. I was invested a little bit because what was he talking about? He was on InfoWars with Alex Jones, and Trump was talking about he knows the system is corrupt. He's going to fix the system, talking about the deep state. He's saying the media is fake. You know, he was saying a lot of the things I say at first, right, when he was running. And then he won, and it seemed like it was a very close win. So it was a bit exciting at the time, but then over time it became clear what the presidency was all about. So without explaining the dialectic too much, let's go through the news and we'll use the dialectic to explain it. What you're going to have now, that he has been indicted, he's going to face charges. And by the way, let's talk about what the charges are. The charges are that he paid Stormy Daniels money as like non-disclosure. They're calling it a hush payment because they had relations with each other, and then he paid her allegedly $130,000 for her to now run with that story before his election, right? Because obviously that story comes out, he's not going to win the election. It would tarnish his name, right? So, but the actual charges there, he was not the president then. So the charges there are for falsifying business records. That's the actual crime he committed, right? That he gave money to his lawyer for facilitating that payment to her, to Stormy Daniels, and basically he didn't report that in the way that he's supposed to whatever financial institutions are in charge. I believe those are the charges. I don't know if they're unsealed yet. Like this information is not fully. It wasn't fully out when I was preparing for this, but apparently it's for business falsifying business records, and it's not that he stole money or something like that, or it's not about any kind of improper relations that he had with Stormy Daniels, right? This is just about it wasn't reported correctly. That's the actual crime he's facing. And many people will now defend him. They're going to defend Trump. They're going to say this is unjust, because they're going to latch on to the injustice of, well, what did he actually do wrong? He didn't actually do anything wrong except, withhold information from the IRS or whatever financial regulation institution there is, which basically means he hid something from the main bully and the main thief in the world, which is the financial institutions, the government, the tax collectors, so on and so forth. His big crime is basically, not being a good slave and not reporting the correct amount of information. So it's not that he tried to commit fraud in some form. I believe this is more along the lines of what they like tax evasion, what they call tax evasion. It's kind of that kind of thing, like a transgression of evading financial rules. And people are going to defend him now because they're going to say that. They're going to say, what did he do wrong? And they're going to ignore how clumsy he is at communicating, how he did this to himself, how he had 4 years to actually bring in serious change and it didn't happen. Instead, there was a lot of, like I say, clumsy communication, like clumsy rhetoric. He wasn't so professional and buttoned up, and this was a problem because there's a lot of change that could have been made, right? But still, he has many supporters. Many people still support Donald Trump. They still think he's a good guy, and they're gonna ignore that, right? The unprofessional way he conducts himself. They're going to engage in debate with people who are going to say, hey, this guy's a clown. Look at the way he talks. Look at the way he conducts himself. Look at he doesn't have his business in order. He's having payments to porn stars for them to not disclose their relations. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's very easy to attack, right? But the people are going to defend him because it's not like he actually stole anything. It's not like this is some kind of business corruption. His big crime was hiding information from the government, right? And now the other side are going to put this in their back pocket as another instance of proof, another proof that everything Donald Trump claimed to stand for is corrupt, is wrong, and is unjust, right? And that they already point to the impeachment, the attempts to impeach him that have been there. All kinds of things that come up, about him, all of his tweets, all of his misspellings, all of it. This is the cherry on the top of, this is why the things he was talking about have no merit. And what I'm talking about is what I mentioned in the beginning. It's being anti-establishment, anti-mainstream media, right? To question everything and for a person to research things for themselves, even if it is about conspiracy, not trusting an institution or the so-called experts to filter and manage information for you, right? So these are the things he claimed to stand for. And now that he goes down, and he goes down in the sense that he's going to face criminal charges. He goes down in the court of public opinion. Then we go down with him as far as those aspects, those things that he stood for, right? Being anti-establishment, even leaning towards talking about conspiracy and occult aspects of government, right? He talked about that. And now this is like proof that that must not have been true, because the main guy of that, the champion of that, went down for criminal charges. And this happens a lot with people who talk about nutrition, who talk about science, who do really do amazing things as far as empowering the people and destroying institutions and set up systems systems that are hurting people, right? Like people that make advancements in diet, and people who expose some poisons in the environment, and how, say, institutions like the FDA and agencies like that are actually hurting people, and there are poisons in the food and the water. Like Kevin Trudeau, I believe, is still in jail. Like they'll try to take them down with all kinds of charges, right? Take them down for deceptive business practices, stuff like this, having to do with taxes, so they could send them to jail, because then that's like proof that what they were talking about, their main body of work, must not have been true or must not have been credible, when in fact what they were talking about is 100% true and credible. But because they went to jail, or they had to, deal with legal fees, that's going to basically destroy their credibility. So that's the dialectic here. You got the people that are going to defend them, and the people who are just going to use this, they're going to add more coal to the fire, because they already hated Donald Trump, right? And of course, as long as people participate in this dialectic, they're not talking about the important things, they're not participating in any change, right? Because that's when we have to put Trump to the side, say, okay, that's old news. What are the actual issues here? Donald Trump didn't do anything about the Federal Reserve. He didn't do anything about the censorship. So many more things, right? He did have close relations with nations. He didn't expose people that he should know. He had to know information about. He didn't expose them. All types of different things. But the dialectic works because people are going to focus on this, and that tension right there is going to create a whole lot of energy now to drive the synthesis, which will be whoever wins the election moving forward, what they're going to do about guns, because remember, number one on the agenda is gun control, is to take away any serious weaponry that the American people have. That is still the main thing on the agenda for the occult. And the dialectic is at work, and it's going to be strengthened. A couple things were said about this. Some people in Congress or Democrats are happy about this, and they're saying, no one is above the law. I've heard this said a lot in tweets and so forth, is that nobody's above the law. So this is seen now as a form of justice, because Donald Trump is a billionaire. He's not getting treated like the average person on the street if they break these rules, right? And this is celebrated now as the law applying to everybody, even somebody who's a billionaire and a former president. And this is supposed to represent justice, right? But when they say no one is above the law, it's really what they're saying is everybody's a slave to this system, and there are no more exceptions. So this is actually tyranny spreading, and this is why I'm talking about this in This Week in Tyranny, because just because a rich person gets his money taken away, and then that money gets given to people who don't have money, that does not mean justice was carried out, right? And it's tough to take this position sometimes, because we look at somebody like Trump and we say, why does that guy have all this money and I have to work my ass off 55 hours a week? But really, we need to defend these people at a time like this, because where's the tyranny? The tyranny is that he's going to get targeted right now with a crime that's a non-crime. No crime was actually committed here, right? He didn't cheat somebody or commit fraud in that way to get some more money. It was a misrepresentation. It was a misdocumentation of information, right? And the real crime is the people who are the financial institutions and the IRS that have this power to say, you know, if you don't report a transaction the right way, they're going to put you in jail. And what they're going to do anyway, based on the information you give them, is extort money from you. They're going to unjustly take money from you. So what they're saying when they say no one is above the law, they're saying anybody's a slave to the system. Anybody could be an example, and everybody is a slave to the system. Then I saw Ron DeSantis tweeted something about the Soros-backed district attorney in Manhattan. And I see this is still a phrase people use, Soros-backed, you know, talking about George Soros and that he funds, you know, Black Lives Matter and a lot of other movements, and that, you know, Republicans talk about Soros-backed as if the people who sponsor them, as if they don't have occult sponsors, you know, people that are social engineers that throw money into getting things accomplished. The Republican Party has set themselves up as being somehow anti-establishment, but they're a whole 50% of the dialectic. And I read this and I saw Soros-backed, you know. What does that really say, Soros-backed? You said, okay, yes, George Soros is funding evil movements. He's funding the advance of tyranny and the advance of international socialism. And then what? You know, you're using Soros-backed. It's more of this singular, monolithic thinking. Trump, you know, Soros, Biden, and people aren't talking about the real issues to transcend the dialectic, right? So, and if Ron DeSantis gets in, he's not going to get anything done. I would say he's going to be probably a lot less effective than Donald Trump even was. And I don't think Donald Trump was effective at all. So what if the economy was good for a few years? What changed? I was saying this actually before. Maybe I was saying I wanted Hillary Clinton to win the election so that this false system could collapse as soon as possible so we could rebuild it the right way. Because what happened? And I'll go into this is a good transition to what I wanted to conclude with. Looking back at the Trump presidency, right? We've had a few years since Biden was in office. A clear picture forms of why he was allowed to take office, right? It's not that because they could direct the election whichever way they want, right? It's not a problem, right? So this isn't a fair fight anyway. But why was he allowed to take office? Because remember, it's a selection. It's not an election. It's a selection. They selected Donald Trump because it's accomplished a lot because of that dialectic. So they actually got a person in who represented the people, seemed to represent the people, to get more done, because otherwise it wouldn't have happened. The people, we would have been more inert. We would have been tougher to get us to go along with some of these certain things. And I want to talk about, in no particular order, about what they have accomplished thanks to the Trump presidency, how that has advanced tyranny. Number one, it's gotten people to identify with race and mobilize along nationalistic and racial lines. And this has happened, you know. This straight up has happened. There has been more of like a white pride coming out. Not just from middle America, but even people in the cities too. And that's worked against the dialectic of Black Lives Matter because, of course, that voice has grown stronger because of how many unarmed people how many people they executed in the street, the police. So no wonder that's going to create a lot of noise, you know. It's so egregious, and they're still doing this, right? I have my video about Tyree Nichols. Obviously, we have to speak up about them executing us in the street because that's going to be us soon, right? But now, because that's a movement, that leadership of that movement, BLM, is funded by George Soros. So now that's going to create the other side of the dialectic of people that are basically, they say, they view that other side and they kind of put on the other color. They put on the other jersey. They say, oh, then the right thing to do is, the white culture, and really um, mobilizing along like an old school conservative mindset. And what that gets done is really takes people back. It takes people back. It makes us less dangerous uh, as a force against the tyranny system, because people are going to identify with racial lines, and um, they're more resistant to change that needs to happen. Within our own race, within our own nation, people are so pro-America and American first now. You put the American flag on something, and they don't worry about censorship or surveillance or all this, because they think the enemy is somewhere else. They think the enemy is the migrants, or or Islam, or BLM, or the rioters breaking the windows in the street. They say that this is where tyranny is, but they don't look at the tyranny within their own home. So when people identify with race and with those simplistic old school ego identification, that helps the system of tyranny, the occult deep state, a lot more. Number two, what the Trump presidency has done, probably the most important thing, it's revived the people's faith in institutions. So on the left, the institutions that have been revived thanks to Donald Trump is the media and science, right? The media, because the people were so weaponized against Donald Trump that when the media now on the nightly news was attacking him, they started watching it even more, becoming invested in it, because it was like an emotional investment. The media told them what they felt deep inside, and it validated them. And now it's reconnected that umbilical cord connection to the media, and the people are so addicted to the media they watch. And science now, because of the pandemic, because Trump at first was anti-COVID narrative, right? Then basically the corporately correct narrative of doing everything the right way, taking all the safety precautions, the whole thing with Fauci. It's reinvigorated that belief in science for those people who are left leaning. And for the right, those people who have identified with the racial and nationalistic lines, it's reinvigorated their faith in the police and military. I always talk about this now. 10, 15 years ago, the average American white citizen who was aware, they were, I was too young, they were very against police and military. It was they saw the police state coming, right? So it was seen as pretty anti-American of having a cop on every corner. And after the initial fear-directed mind control of the war in Afghanistan, there was a lot of anti-war voices. Why are we in Iraq? Why are we in Afghanistan? This is a lie. This is we don't need to be sending our military there. That's how it was 10 years ago. But now there seems to have been this kind of everybody's left the field and rejoined and regrouped with their team. And now the people think the police is there to protect them, and that the tyranny is somewhere else, like I said, and that the military is fighting for us. We've really been taken 40 years back in that sense, Number three, it's damaged the credibility of anti-establishment views by association. So I mentioned that before, Anybody that now says that, some federal agency is corrupt, or, George Soros is funding this, they're funding this, we're talking about cultural Marxism. It's damaged the credibility of those views, because now Donald Trump is seen as the person who talked about that, and now he was charged with felony charges. So, therefore, that must be false what you're saying. This is the mind control tactic, right? And finally, the main thing the Trump presidency has accomplished is 7+ years and counting of inaction. Inaction, and that's what the Trump presidency has done. That's why it would have been better if Hillary Clinton won, because it would have mobilized us to act, to take actions, to take actions to not believe in a political savior, because his supporters see him as a savior, and his opponents, attackers, see him as basically the devil. So, but all their energy is going towards either building up that person, building him up, or tearing him down. None of that energy is going towards actual change in the community, actual conversation between different groups of people about what the real problems are and therefore what the solutions are. Buying into the Trump savior complex. People think a political savior is going to solve anything for them. People still believe this. They're still just waiting for 2024. This is mind control. This is mind control, and Donald Trump has been a great builder of the tyranny system, whether he knows it or not. It's not on him. And that's why when I'm attacking the Trump presidency, it's not about him, the person. It's not about if I think that he was trying to get things done. I'm just looking at the facts, right? We got to think like the social engineers, like the occultists, because they're going A, B, C. They're building the system up, and they're pushing the buttons they need to push to get done what they want to get done. They don't care how it looks like. They don't care how it makes them feel. And that's the problem with us. We need to take our feelings out of the equation. Trump got indicted. The main idea is it politically motivated? Of course, Is there a part of injustice there, a sense of injustice? There's that aspect to it, of course. So what, right? And that's why I wanted to focus on this in This Week in Tyranny. This episode was about Donald Trump, that presidency, and I'm looking ahead to the video about the Covenant School and the Nashville shooting, because that's really the news. That's what we really need to talk about. So that'll be coming up separately. Thank you for viewing this episode, and I'll see you next week on This Week in Tyranny.
You either vote for the mumps or the measles. Whether you vote for the lesser of two evils, you vote for evil. Politics and God are not equal, but the education to get on God is really lethal. People have more respect for a holy book than they do for a cow on a meat hook.